It's Julia with Julia's Art Dolls. Thank you for joining me. This is Maximo. He's here today. He has a fresh new cut. He's looking all handsome and snuggly in his little outfit. And this is Nevaeh. She is a new doll that I just created. A beautiful ethnic newborn baby girl. Or she could be a boy if you wanted. She is available. I just made a video talking about her and how to contact me if you're interested. She'll be on my website, and you can contact me through Instagram, Facebook, or my email, or right on here. So welcome to my channel. This is a place where I talk about reborns and the hobby and my art, as I am an artist, and I take you on outings with my family, and we do some hauls and some chat and changes and talk about life. And today is a day that I want to talk about life. I have been asked to talk about what it's like to be a stay-at-home mom. Someone asked me in the comments in another video, Cyber Cowgirl, hi, thank you so much for reaching out and feeling comfortable enough to ask me to create content that you wanted to see. I love that. It means that you appreciate what I'm doing and that you are liking what I'm doing, and that means the world to me. And that's what this is all about for me. So I just wanted to acknowledge that I see you, I appreciate you. And you know, it's a topic that I feel very passionate about, and I was going to talk about anyway, maybe not so soon, so I am doing so for you. Let me just take this out of my mouth. I have a little bit of a scratchy throat, so I have something in my mouth, and we cannot do this with that. So hold on 1 second. Okay, that's better. I don't think you wanted to hear me smacking. My brother makes fun of me enough about my smacking, and my partner actually. A little secret. I'm going to tell you a little bit about how obnoxious my partner can be at times. I love him. I'm joking. But I think that he has some sensitivities to textures and sounds and things like that. Maybe he's on the spectrum a little bit. But when I am eating next to him, he literally puts an earplug in the ear that is closest to me. And I'm like, do you see these lips? I'm sorry. Ridiculous. So I spared you all from that, okay? I took the fireball out of my mouth. That's what it was. I've been really into the fireballs lately. So I have written some notes down, so I touch on all of the things that I wanted to talk about. But being a stay-at-home mom, so a little bit about why I feel passionate about that. You know, specifically like the mental health and acknowledging stay-at-home moms, and acknowledging the emotional and mental and physical strength that it takes to be a stay-at-home mother or father. You know, I don't have experience with that, but you know, I don't want to not acknowledge that there are stay-at-home fathers, many of them, you know, and I don't want to diminish that, but I can only speak to being a stay-at-home mom. So I was a stay-at-home mother for 17 years. I have 3 children. My oldest is 20. He is a junior in college this year. Then my middle son, he just graduated from high school and he's a freshman this year. in college. So I have 2 older boys in college. It's crazy. They're grown men. And so I was a stay-at-home mom for a long time. And then I have a little girl who I just started homeschooling this year. She is almost 13. She's going to be 13 in 2 weeks. Yeah, 2 weeks. So she is in 8th grade, and she is currently home with me, and we're homeschooling. So my 3 children, I stayed at home from my first child on. I will say that I worked small jobs here and there just to kind of get out of the house. Only a couple, you know. It was nothing that was consistent. It wasn't anything that was for a considerable length of time. I think the longest that I ever worked somewhere was like at a diner for a year. And it was like maybe 2-3 days a week to get me out of the house and you know, just give me some social interaction and my own spending money. So I went back to work after I got a divorce 4 years ago now, 5 years ago. So I didn't work for a little while after our separation, and then, you know, we lived 45 minutes away from where I am now, and I moved here to be closer to my parents, and that was after about a year because the kids were still in school and I didn't want to move them like out of school, so we waited for them to be done for the summer and things like that. So there was a considerable length of time where I had separated and was living on my own with my children, but I wasn't working. Thank goodness for alimony, right? I will give my ex-husband that. He has been very, very consistent and wonderful about supporting his children and myself when we needed it. So I am very grateful and appreciative of that. So anyway, I came here and it was time to work, and it was scary. I hadn't worked in a very long time, really ever, you know. Because I had my first child right out of college. I got pregnant my senior year of college. So I didn't have a time where I had a career. My career was being a stay-at-home mother. So I did go back to work, and I was working the mental health field. I kind of started out at the lower end and worked my way up, and just crazy turn of events. And you know, I deserved it. I don't want to diminish that. I became the executive director of an intensive mental health outpatient clinic, an intensive outpatient mental health clinic. So, and I did mention in my other video, I think my introduction video, that I lost my job because we had to close, and I won't get into that because there's still a whole lot going on with that. I will be able to talk about it eventually because it is the craziest story you could ever think of. Like, you could not make it up, and everyone that's involved in it that I talked to and that I was talking to at the time, we kind of, you know, had this joke that it was gonna be a movie. Like, it legit could be a movie. Julia Roberts, where are you? Zoe Kravitz is playing me. This I've decided. Um, so yeah, I was very much in the workforce for the last 4 years, or so, the last 3.5, 4 years. And it was an intense job. So coming out of that, I decided I don't want to work for a while, and luckily I have a partner who is supporting that. It has not been easy. I want to grow my reborn business, and I couldn't really do that and have a full-time job. I mean, I could, but the amount of time and effort that I am putting into creating videos and working on my inventory and working on, my social media and things like that, I just could not do working full time. So some of those feelings and some of those struggles that I felt when I was a stay-at-home mom with my young children are coming back up for me. And so it got me thinking about how difficult it is to be at home. And I think that it's something that we don't acknowledge. We talk about how work is hard and working mothers. I was a single working mother, and that is extremely difficult. But I think that it's important that we acknowledge how difficult it can be for stay-at-home mothers, because we a lot of the times suffer in silence. It, as a society, it's looked at as a luxury, right? I found myself, when I would tell people that I'm a stay-at-home mom, I would always lead with, I'm so grateful. It was such a luxury, and it was such a privilege to be able to do that. And it is, because a lot of parents, a lot of couples are not able to do that financially, and I was very grateful and I was lucky that I was able to do that. My ex-husband was very successful in his business, and I was able to stay at home. So while that is a luxury, I don't want it to diminish that it is unpaid work, right? That's what we're doing. It is work that is 24/7. It is an immense amount of responsibility. It may look different for other people. For me, it was all of the cleaning, all of the cooking, all of the child care, all of the scheduling and errands. It might not look like that for every stay-at-home mother, but in my marriage, I didn't have a partner. He wasn't able to. He worked 24/7. That was the sacrifice. So I do want to acknowledge that it looks different for different couples and for different people, but it is an incredibly vast amount of responsibility, and that puts an incredible amount of stress on someone. It's very isolating. We as women go through, at least I did, some identity loss. I think that is very common, that we become just mothers. And I don't mean just mothers as that diminishing what that is. but that becomes our only identity when we, as people, as women, as females, are way more than that, right? I was a mother, I am a mother, but I'm so much more than that. And I think when that isolation happens, we also lose that identity if you don't take care of yourself. But we'll get into that. That greatly affects your mental health. So let's talk a little bit about the isolation. So that isolation is both physical and social, right? We are trapped in the house. It feels like trapped in the house. And this is, when our children are younger, when they're babies, as they get older and they're in school and, you're ramming them around to different places, that changes slightly. But when you have young children and that isolation, you have very limited adult interaction. Thank goodness I had my mother. I don't have her anymore. She passed a year ago. But at that time, I don't think I would have survived if I didn't have my mom to speak to every day. So you have limited adult interaction. You're around just your babies, and your partner. There's a lack of access to social and professional spaces. When I was a young mom, I had no idea that there were groups for mothers, support groups. Later on, when I became involved in the mental health field, I distinctly remember, oh my gosh, I didn't know that this stuff existed. I didn't know that there was a group for moms, and I didn't know that there was this and that here in my local community. So there is. I want you to know that there are resources out there, and to please seek them out. There's that isolation. You just do not have the interaction. That creates loneliness. And so I think social media is a place where we can reach out to each other. But also, I remember at the time, social media for me was not beneficial. And I know that it is for a lot of people, and I know that that people have interaction and friends and make real deep connections on social media. Years ago, it wasn't quite the same as it is now. We're talking 20 years ago, 18 years ago. I've never really been into social media and things like that. So for me, social media only kind of made it worse, because I would see other people's lives. I would see other women doing things that I really wanted to do in my life, and I felt like I couldn't because I was trapped at home. So for me, it made it a little bit more difficult. So I stepped away from it. It was better for my mental health to not be involved in social media. I remember thinking, my dreams are over. I got pregnant in my senior year of college. I had goals. It happens. People get pregnant. Obviously it wasn't planned, but that's okay. My children are amazing. But I wasn't able to fulfill the things that I dreamt of. So that really led to not knowing who I was anymore. I wasn't able, and I think that happens. We have an idea of what our life's going to be, and maybe it was being a mother. But that's the surprise that I think that hits all of us. We don't realize what actually entails being a stay-at-home mom. We have this idea that it's this or that, and that at least I did. I saw myself as being the perfect granola mom. I was going to homeschool all the kids. We were going to eat all natural foods. I was never going to raise my voice. My children were never going to be naughty because I spoke to them calmly, and they understood that, if you speak to them a certain way, they're not going to misbehave. I was going to have all of the things perfect. My home was going to be perfect. I was going to look perfect and can you tell I'm a perfectionist? And that just is not attainable. It's not attainable at all. So we have this idea of what motherhood is in our heads before it actually happens. And then when it happens, it's like, bam, it hits you in the face. And I don't think any of us are really prepared for what it actually entails. The isolation, the identity loss, kind of dealing with that transition from being the person that you were to now being a mother, and maybe kind of being confronted with the fact that it's something you didn't quite know that it was going to be. And we also are dealing with, at least I did, and I think that this just comes from society not truly acknowledging the difficult work that it is. We become invisible, right? There were moments when I remember pushing my children in the grocery store and feeling invisible. When the care and the work is 24/7, it's constant, and you're not getting paid for it. It makes you feel underappreciated. I think that it's okay to feel that way, just because we are giving our entire being to something. And don't get me wrong, it's a wonderful, I don't regret it, and it's a wonderful thing to give ourselves to. We have decided to bring a child into the world, and we are raising a child, and I'm not diminishing that is my greatest accomplishment. But I have to say that. I have to do that for myself. When you have a job and you've done really well in a job, there's someone, you may get a raise, or you get the promotion, or employee of the month. No one is doing that for you as a mother. I have received that from watching my children be successful. We get that, But when you're a young mother, and you are in the midst of it, and you are struggling with all of these things, you feel unappreciated. We have to change what success looks like. I think in society we are told that success is money, success is material things, success is the perfect position at the office or owning your business or whatever that may be, but it's some type of monetary value. And I don't think that our society here in America, that is not true for other countries, that it's not acknowledged, the success that we have as mothers, as parents. It doesn't feel the same, it's not valued the same as having other types of success. Okay, so I wanted to talk about how this all affects our mental health. We have lost this identity, we've given up our lives, we've given up our hobbies, we may have lost friends, we may have lost, social interactions that we once have. We've let go of dreams that we once had. This sounds terrible. Again, we are talking about the negative aspect of something. There's good and bad in everything. I wouldn't change it for the world. I feel like as I'm talking about this, it sounds like I'm trying to convince you not to be a stay-at-home mom, but that is not the case. So this affects our mental health, right? We've all heard of postpartum depression. So I just wanted to let you know some statistics, right? Postpartum depression can hit within 1 year of having a child, but it's usually 1 to 2 weeks after giving birth, but it can be much longer after that. It's 1 in every 7 mothers will feel postpartum depression, and there is a difference between postpartum depression and the baby blues. I think like 70 to 80% of mothers will feel some baby blues, and that's it's all of those things that we talked about. Your identity is switching, your life is changing drastically. You no longer are your priority. You now are caring for this human. You aren't sleeping. Your life is drastically different. So that's going to create a little bit of blues for anyone. Especially when you're sleep deprived. Sadness, we're emotional, there's hormones happening. So 70 to 80% of mothers feel that baby blues within the first week, the second week and even before the baby is born sometimes. And that's called prenatal depression, when it's the one in actual postpartum depression, when it is that deep depression that's not going away. So postpartum depression, prenatal depression, that is those baby blues that are making it difficult to take care of yourself and take care of your child. And I just wanted to throw that out there and point that out. We need to normalize talking about it. We need to normalize reaching out and seeking help. We need to normalize therapy. It is important. It is okay. Mental health struggles are a direct result of intense stress, right? No human being can take on intense stress and not have some type of struggle. How we handle and cope with those struggles may be vastly different, may be healthy, may be unhealthy, but mental health struggles are the result of intense stress. And being a new mother is intense stress, right? So, what do we do about all of these things? What do we do about the isolation? What do we do about feeling underappreciated and feeling lonely, feeling depressed? Well, I'm going to tell you. Okay. So, like I said, mental health struggles are not weakness. They are a normal response to the intense, unrelenting responsibility that it takes to take care of a little human, right? And if that is what we are doing as mothers, we have to take care of ourselves. So a lot of this that it was happening with me, I tried to contain to myself. I didn't want anyone to know. I wanted everyone to think that I was the perfect mother. And there's issues with that in itself, because I think that there's so much pressure put upon mothers to be that by society. Because if we're frantic, if we are the depiction of the frazzle-haired, coffee-drinking, like, just I'm gonna lose my mind, freaking out mom, that equals weakness. That equals I'm a bad mom. That equals I am not doing this right. I must be doing something wrong. Or it's a reflection on your child. I thought that if I was a mess, it meant that I couldn't handle my children, and that something must be wrong with my parenting style, therefore something must be wrong with my children. So as a perfectionist, I definitely tried to contain any level of stress. And so if people don't know that I'm stressed, how are they going to, your family, friends, your partner, definitely your partner, how are they going to relieve you or support you? So communication is one. That is the biggest thing. Communicating with your partner, your wants, your needs, the things that you need to feel whole as a person, the things that will help you feel better, right? So communicating with your partner, sharing some of that load. So maybe you are responsible for all of the cleaning in the house. He better be responsible for some other things. Maybe you're responsible for all of the cooking. So if that's the case, maybe he's responsible for taking care of the children while you're cooking. You cannot do both. So there has to be an actual sit down. It can't be just, I need you to watch the baby while I cook. That's not efficient communication. There has to be communication where you sit down together and you are able to say, I am struggling with all of these responsibilities. I appreciate you. I appreciate the things that you do for our family, but I also need some help at this time. I am more than happy to cook, but at that time, I would appreciate you helping out with the baby, take him out for a walk, read him a book. I don't know. This is just examples, but you get the idea. It has to be an actual full conversation, and you have to follow through those. It's not going to work if you're not following through with those things. And this might be difficult for couples. Maybe it's really difficult to communicate in that way, and or maybe you can communicate and you feel like you're not being heard, or either one of you are not following through. That's when I highly suggest some therapy, sitting down with someone, because they will give you the skills on how to achieve those goals that you have for each other as a couple and as a family. Okay. So we're communicating. I think that goes for not just your couple, not just your partner, but your family. It's okay to ask for help. It's okay to ask your family for help. It's okay to ask your friends for help. Maybe your friend doesn't want to come over and watch your kid for you while you go out and do this and that. But maybe your friend would come over and hang out with you for coffee, or that's something that I did with another mother. At that time, I was really missing having friends, and so I made it a point to become friends with another mom, and she came over at after school. Our boys were in school together, and so she would come over after school and we would have a little bit of wine while the kids played. Nothing serious. I don't want you to think we were downing bottles of wine, but we would come over, and I drink a thimble of wine when I drink anyway, but we would, but it felt like we were doing something for ourselves together. We were having our little bit of Pinot Grigio while the kids played in the yard, and it felt like we were pampering ourselves in some way. And it did wonders for my mental health. I looked forward to it. We didn't do it every day, but it was a couple times a week, and I think we both felt like we were connecting, we were taking care of ourselves, we were doing something good for our boys. So it's okay to ask for help, and the help may look different for other groups that you ask, right? Because I do want to acknowledge that there are single friends that might not be willing to come and watch your children for you so you can go to yoga class. You might have to find someone else, but there are different ways in which they can help you. So another thing is you need to set boundaries for yourself. It is okay to say no. You are exhausted. There's a pile of laundry. It is okay to say no. I am not putting that laundry away right now. I am exhausted. It is okay to not be available at all times. You may be in the home, but if you are emotionally drained and you know that if you give yourself any more, if you do not take 10 minutes to yourself, you are going to explode. It is okay to not be available. You can say no to your children. You can say no to your partner. If that means you are going to show up for them in 10 minutes, 15 minutes the next day, the way that you need to, it's okay to say no. It's okay to say, I have to have some time. And they need to respect that. Obviously, I got a divorce for reasons. My marriage was not perfect. So I think that I want to acknowledge that if there isn't mutual respect, if you are with someone, if you're in a relationship where that is not being respected, it's time. And again, it's normal. It's okay to ask for help through a professional. It's okay to go to therapy. And that I would be demanding. Looking back, I would have demanded. I didn't. And I got a divorce. So I think that it's really, really important. I strongly believe that if you're really struggling with your partner with some of these things that I'm saying, it's time to talk to a professional, okay? Lastly, I want to say that you are not alone. You are not failing. This is hard. Being a stay-at-home mother is incredibly difficult. Like I said, we have an enormous amount of responsibility put on our shoulders to take care of these little humans, and that is very overwhelming, and it can feel like you're failing, but I promise you that you're not. As long as you are taking care of yourself, making sure that you are doing your self-care, finding time for yourself. I think I forgot to mention that. So part of setting those boundaries is making sure that you're taking time to yourself. You're asking for help, you're communicating with your partner, but don't think that you can't leave the house and do something for you. It's incredibly important. It's all right to leave your children. I really struggled with that. I never wanted to leave them. I felt like if I was leaving them, I wasn't being a good mother in some way. Like, it's irrational now. I don't know why I felt that way, but I did. You can fulfill hobbies, you can fulfill interests, whether it's taking a class on crocheting or going to the gym. That was a huge outlet for me, just going to the gym, working out. And exercise is so beneficial for our mental health in general, whether you're a stay-at-home mother or not. It is, and you're gonna feel really good about moving your body, especially after having a child. Our bodies have changed. Maybe you're struggling with some of that. I really struggled with an eating disorder all through being a stay-at-home mom, but that was kind of a lot of other stuff that was going on too. But I think it came out of my body had changed, and I was really struggling with all of those things. And I think that taking care of yourself and doing something for you is going to help with all of that. So exercise is so beneficial for our mental health in general and our bodies. It keeps us healthy. So finding things that fulfill you and make you feel good. So that became reborns for me, the exercising and then reborns. And it became a healthy outlet for me. They gave me joy. They helped with my anxiety. They helped with my depression. They helped with my loneliness. It helped me connect to other people. I started talking to people online a little bit here and there, at least, because I had never really gotten into social media and stuff. And when I started, I also was a personal trainer too, so that got me out of the house, and I was talking to people, and so that kind of was at the same time. So there was a couple things that were happening for me that helped me feel better about being a stay-at-home mom, but and helped my mental health. But I think that reborns are incredibly beneficial for those of us that are struggling with some of these things. So I discovered reborns, and that became an obsession. So I just thought that they were so beautiful, and I love being creative. I've always been creative. I've always loved doing any type of DIY, sewing, creating things. I paint a little bit. I kind of always had my hands in a little bit of this and that. So when I discovered reborns, I fell in love with the hobby. I fell in love with the art, and that became an outlet for me, and it helped me find a purpose. I started selling them, so I felt like I was was gaining some income for myself. That felt really good. Being a stay-at-home mom, we are not contributing to the household financially, and that can cause some stress. I know that at times I felt guilty about that, even though I was raising the children. I don't think that we should not feel guilty about that, but I think that it's common, right? So when I started selling, I felt good about having my own money, right, from creating something that I put so much love and joy into. It gave me purpose again, and it made me happy. So, even if you're not creating them, I think that they just create so much joy. They bring joy to us because they're beautiful, right? And they feel nice. I don't know how if I would have felt the same way about having them if my children were really small still, but that is something that I missed. So when I discovered reborns, it filled that void a little bit for me, and that's what that is to this day. That's why I love them. I mean, I love them because they're beautiful, and I love creating them. I love the art process, but I love having them and holding them and doing all of the baby things because I truly, truly, deeply miss having babies. Because at the end of the day, being a stay-at-home mom was my greatest accomplishment. Raising my babies to be the successful little humans that they are today is my greatest accomplishment, and that happened because I stayed at home with them, because I was there with them. And not to say that if you are working, you're not raising beautiful, amazing children. I'm sure you are, but I know that it made all the difference for me and my family and my children. My oldest is, all three of my children are so sensitive and caring and thoughtful and kind and wise, and I truly believe that that is because they spent so much close time with me. So yeah, I I just think that being a stay-at-home mom is magical. Um, I think that it is the greatest gift that you can give your children. It is, that being said, it's very hard. It's demanding on us emotionally, mentally, physically. Um, but that's why we are strong, powerful women, right? The female body, the female psyche is a force to be reckoned with. And that's what makes us so amazing and powerful as mothers, right? So please, please like this video. When you like and you watch, it helps my channel grow. Please comment, please subscribe. I would love to hear your stories. I would love to hear your thoughts and feelings about some of the things that I've said today. I do want to mention that these are my opinions from my own experience in life. And that does not mean that I don't respect other people's opposing values or opinions. That does not mean that I can't understand someone else's point of view, and that doesn't mean that I would ever try to force my values and beliefs and thoughts and feelings on someone else. What I'm speaking of today is about my own experience, and my experience forms how I think and how I feel about things. So, thank you. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.